Welcome back, everyone, new and old. If you don't know who I am, my name is Coach Blaker. I've been professionally coaching for 10 years, Diamond in all roles, Diamond 2 peak. Today, we're going to look at Dev Chat, and Riot has put out 4 of them. So I'm going to have a playlist of all 4. I'm going to put the link in the description below for that playlist if you guys want to see it. But I'll have a playlist of all 4. Then I'm going to upload them all at the same time so you don't have to worry about any of that. But pretty much we're going to be giving my thoughts about what they're going to do, my thoughts about the game, and everything like that. If you haven't watched it already, because I am going to be pausing at certain spots to just kind of explain what I'm thinking, make sure you go watch it. It's on their channel. But if you don't mind the pausing and the sitting and, me talking, how you doing? Let's, make sure you got your cup of coffee or your snacks, and we can go ahead and get through this. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started. There's not really much to say anymore. Boom, bam, shamalam. I don't know what that was. Let's go. I already have my earphones in, my earbuds. All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Froxon Long Harrison. I'm the design lead of the Summoner's Rift team.
And I'm Patrick Petrie Noonan. I'm the product lead of the Summoner's Rift team. And the Summoner's Rift team, we own game health and game balance and all of the major game system updates in League of Legends. So this will be things like the champion durability update and preseason that we do each year. And today we wanted to talk to you a bit about just some of our thoughts on state of the game and balance and things that we spend a lot of time thinking about and working on. I know an interesting one is thinking about position health. And when I say position, I mean like top, jungle, mid, ADC, and support, of course. We look at select rates, like how many people are playing it, what do people feel and think when they're playing that, but we also think a lot about something called position agency too.
Yeah, so for position agency, unlike champion win rates, we can't really look at the win rates of a position because there's one in each team. And so instead we look at something called position agency, which is the impact of a position on the game's outcome. So
I like that. Okay, so I will say, like I said, you're going to probably have some pauses. I'm not going to pause frequently like some videos, but I will be pausing to give my thoughts. I really did want to talk about position agency because I didn't think of it that way. I did know that they were tracking a metric like that, but I didn't think about the fact that they couldn't really do it in a way where it made sense to say, okay, the win rate, because he's right. There's 2 on each, there's 1 on each team, so it doesn't really work because they'll be just fluctuating that win rate if we're talking about, solo queue. So I like that. My personal thoughts right now, I think top has the most agency. I definitely think top has the most champions in it that are very hard to deal with, even if they have a little bit of lead, very hard to deal with if they don't. And I do think right now top is a little bit over the top. With jungle has a lot of agency, but the player has to know what they're doing. The issue is top has a lot of agency and the player doesn't really have to. And if the player does know what they're doing, it's going to be a day. It's going to be a problem. So I'm curious to know more. Let's see.
for example, if a jungler were to gank mid and get a successful kill, that's likely going to be some amount of impact towards the game outcome.
Right.
And so we use a combination of some data models to figure out position agency, as well as our intuitive understanding as game designers and as players of the game to see whether a position is powerful or not.
When you look at how position agency is going across all the roles in the game right now, is there anything you're seeing that stands out as needing a bit more attention?
Throughout the year, we did changes like durability update, the objective changes in patch 12.14, the teleport changes in patch 12.1. And these changes all tended to have one role getting the bad end of the deal, which was top lane. Mm-hmm. Both top laners were less likely to be able to kill squishy champions playing in the mid or support or AD carry positions, as well as finding it harder to impact dragon fights, which had become a little more impactful overall to the game outcome. And so what we observed was top lane going down in agency, and so we tried to give some of that back in
Yeah, for sure.
Our job there is done. We do think that there are some gaps with the way that top laners find satisfaction in playing the role, and we observe that there's just a general split of players in the top lane overall. There are some top laners that really want to fight 1v1, and there are some top laners that really want to impact the map, and we want to make sure that a lot of those playstyles are viable as well.
Yeah, and I know in working on preseason, another one of the big things we were looking at is how we could improve jungle select. So as probably a lot of players realize, if we don't have the right amount of people playing all the different roles, this leads to other things like increase in autofill, less quality matchmaking. And so even though jungle's a very powerful role, we noticed that, not quite as many players were wanting to play it. So I do.
one of the reasons why is because jungle is just hard. The thing is, jungle is hard to play, and on top, well, it's hard to play successfully. It's not hard to really like play, but it's hard to play successfully and win your games. A lot of people think, well, if you just gank my lane, quote unquote unquote, what quote unquote unquote, I don't know what word I was thinking of, but a lot of people are like, if you gank my lane, XYZ, right? And the thing is, if you are in an elo that you deserve to be in, just because a jungler ganks your lane and you have a lead doesn't mean you can carry, because you wouldn't be in your elo if you knew how to carry, if you knew what to do with your leads, right? And so now you have this loop of like, well, jungle sucks because he never ganks my lane, but then it's like, even if he did gank your lane, you probably still wouldn't be able to carry, and then it's just a loop. And then if it's like, well, if I did have a lead, it's somebody else's fault. If I don't have a lead, it's my jungler's fault. So jungler just gets a lot of the blame, and it's just a very draining role. And this is coming from someone who's climbed all roles. The only role that I've gotten attacked for a lot of the times was jungle. Support maybe every now and then, but jungle was most likely the one because it can impact the map. Now, there are junglers that don't know what they're doing sometimes, and that is going to play a factor into jungle itself. But the role itself is hard, and it's very draining because you're always getting flamed. There's really no communication you can have. It's either you're stomping and your team actually likes you, or you're not stomping and your team hates you, or like you make one mistake, your team hates you. It's a very flame-oriented game when you're playing jungle. It's just not fun. And then a lot of the champs in the jungle, they weren't really successful. You only had a small pool. Luckily, with these companion things, they're able to bring out more jungle champions to make the role fun. But again, you're still in that same spectrum of like, it's very draining, it's very hard to do, and you have to really be flexible. All the other roles, you go into lane and you play that lane, right? You play it the same way. You don't have to move around the map. You don't have to play to other players. You can play to yourself if you want. Whether or not you win is a different story, but you kind of see where I'm getting there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's just because it's too hard and it's very, very draining emotionally. And when you're not emotionally, mentally, when you're playing it, you can mute.
Know that we've created some changes for preseason that we're hoping will encourage some players to try out the jungle for the first time, maybe shift back over, making it a little bit more approachable. In this latest preseason 2, we've worked on a bunch of the new like tank items together, and kind of our approach to tank items in the latest preseason did like represent some shift in philosophy around kind of how we look at the mythic item system.
Yeah, so when we first started with the mythic item system, we were generally looking at a few specific goals. We wanted players to always be able to choose between several different mythic items. We always wanted mythic items to be present in your build, and so they were generally tuned to be a strong early purchase. But as we've kind of seen it play out over the years, it's had a few negative effects. Namely, there are some champions who don't feel like they have a great mythic item, and so being forced to buy a mythic that doesn't feel right for their champion can feel pretty bad. And also, we've seen players wanting to opt into specific legendary items like Blade of the Ruined King that do feel great for their champion.
Yeah.
And so kind of our swing at the tank mythics in preseason kind of reflects a change in our philosophy, where we're not trying to pigeonhole champions into buying a specific mythic item every game. And the tank items are designed so that there are some mythics that you can purchase first, and there are some mythics that you can purchase second, and the whole system overall is just a lot more flexible. But we still wanted mythic items to present this kind of high fantasy, high build power over the game with the mythic passive, and we think that this will strike kind of a good balance between early purchases of mythic items and later build defining purchases for them.
And I know we're still always looking at the different classes and champions in the game. While we are a bit looser on you always have to choose between multiple mythic items, because if there's an item a champion loves, that's fine. We want them to be able to take it. But we are still looking for cases where maybe a champion does want more choice in the item system and they don't have that. Or maybe there's just a certain type of item that their champion would really benefit by and it's not even available as an option.
Right.
So there might be new items coming out over the next year, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
But yeah, when thinking about kind of the state of the game and balance in the game, I know probably one of the hottest topics for players is champion balance. That's kind of the main vehicle that players experience the game. How strong is my champion? How strong is the enemy champion? It was really exciting to see the champion durability update go out, and we saw it live. The fights are lasting longer. Players have more opportunity for strategic decisions. It was exciting to see that this doesn't seem to have impacted bloodiness or amount of fighting or kills. That was something we were worried about. And then we've also had a chance now to see this play out at the highest levels of play and professional play and at Worlds.
Yeah.
Right. They are so right about the fights lasting longer. The thing is though, a lot of players don't adapt to that and they might end up in a really sticky situation. When you're playing in lower ranks, adaptation is just not something that comes naturally. That sounds kind of weird, but think of it this way. When something bad happens in the lower ranks, right? Usually the team will then do it again and then it'll happen again and maybe do it one more time, happen one more time, and either they'll lose, maybe they'll change. But if you think about a high elo spectrum or even pro play, once something bad happens, they generally stop doing what they did that caused that bad thing to happen and try to think of something else on the spot. Like that's adaptation. And so when we're talking about that durability patch, there's a lot of champions that don't necessarily teach you to do that because they're so all in focused. So the player doesn't play the champ slower. I actually had a student I was coaching yesterday, and I was telling them that when they were playing Kha'Zix. And, they're so used to just popping in and one-shotting because that's how he used to work. But after the durability patch, you have to play fights slower. You have to make sure that, okay, you can go and get the shot, or maybe you have to go in, smack him once, go back out, go back in, finish him up. Rengar's the same way. You can't really just pounce in and hop in anymore. You have to pounce in, but then you have to think about what am I going to do next unless you're fed. You're not going to one-shot. Even engaged champions have this issue. Like, you have to play the fight slower and you do have to think more. And that's something that the lower ranks tend to struggle with. So although I do like the fact that the speed of the fights are slower and it does allow for more thought process, especially with champs like ADCs, the issue is not everybody knows how to do that on the fly. And so sometimes it's a little bit of a hindrance because players in the lower ranks do like things to be more fast paced. They do like the fights to be more like one bang, one and done. And that just doesn't really happen unless you have a maximum lead. So I don't really know what to say about that one. I think it's really good. But at the same time, I think there's got to be something that like teaches players to not go crazy like they used to. Because even now, players still do the same thing. Talons will still do the same thing. They don't play slow. They'll hop in, do their combo, they don't one shot, and then they die. So I would definitely like to see something to fix stuff like that. Because it's very hard to gauge what you can and can't do based off being fed versus being even versus being behind. Whereas before, it didn't matter. A champ that was an assassin should be able to one-shot a squishy no matter what, even if they are behind. So that's just my thoughts.
I think overall, like you said, we were very nervous about increasing the durability of every champion in the game and how that would impact bloodiness. However, we've kind of observed that there were some surprising outcomes from the objective changes in particular. We intended to make objectives a little more tanky so there was more tension around fights and to make them more rewarding to take in compensation for that. And what we've observed is
that works,
especially in pro play, engagements around these objectives have been very high tension. The team can't just like burst the dragon and then run away. Instead, they have to kind of think carefully about how they're committing their resources. Maybe there's a bit of back and forth.
I like that. I do like that. So the objectives are, okay, well, Rift Herald's still pretty squishy. You can sneak that. But that is true. Dragon right now is really, really tanky, and so is Baron. The issue with this is, like, if you're playing just a true damage or a percent HP champion, you're probably still going to shred both of them. But in a sense where your team's losing and you really want to just hurry up and kill that dragon, it's going to take a long time. So you're kind of punishing a team for being behind. And I don't know. I do like the fact, like, in a perfect world, this is awesome. We have two teams, battling it out for this dragon. And oh my gosh, like, it's potential for really good things to happen. And it's a really fun time. But at the same time, if there's no chance you could take a dragon and, like, they go to Baron and you're the only one alive and you can't kill it faster than they can kill Baron and come to dragon, it's kind of like, well, really? So I don't know. Maybe they could add something for, like, the team that's behind could take it a little bit quicker. Or, like, when there's one champion on it, they could take it a little bit quicker while they're behind. I don't really know how they would do it, but I definitely do think it's a double-edged sword. A lot of their changes have been towards perfect play a lot of the times, and not necessarily towards what we deal with in solo queue, where, like, maybe teammates are really behind, teammates don't listen, teammates are off split pushing and doing some random stuff, so you have to compensate. Like, they don't really, they're thinking about the perfect world. Now, they have uploaded a behavioral thing that I haven't watched yet. Again, this is a series of 4. Make sure you watch them all if you're interested. But right now, I feel like it's more of a hindrance when you're not working as a team. They're making the game very, very team oriented. And there was an interview a long time ago with, I believe, G-Bay, Skara, and a couple other people where they were saying, well, Riot was like, well, our main focus is to make it more like, team focus, more like T1's play. And Skara was like, it's very hard to have random people work together like that because we're random players in a solo queue game, and some of us have more desire to win while others don't. And so when you're designing the game to be more team focused, yeah, it's cool for flex, yeah, it's cool for clash and all that extra good stuff, but what do you do in solo queue, right? So I do think they're missing that mark, because as good as it feels to play as a team, unfortunately that just does not happen every game. And so I don't know. I like it, but at the same time, there's got to be something for like when stuff like that happens. I don't know what they'll do. I'm not a game designer, but it's just a thought.
And it's allowed for a lot more of this back and forth between teams and high tension engagements, which has been really exciting to watch overall on the pro player stage.
Yeah, it's been exciting watching that at Worlds, but now that we're kind of focusing back in on live play and like the rest of the player base and what champion balance is like, we do still think there's opportunities to improve our current approach to champion balance.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So our champion balance framework that we did a few years ago, it served us pretty well. The game feels like it's in a pretty good spot, numerically balanced-wise. But moving forward, I think there's a lot of opportunity in making sure that champions feel good to play.
Did he just
that
ult the
they're
minion?
satisfying their gameplay fantasy, that the
Wait,
player signs up
is that
for
a thing?
to play. Forward, I think there's
Am I correct?
a lot
Oh, he
of
ulted
opportunity
Quinn. Dude, I thought that was a minion. I was like, that can he do that?
in
I thought it was
making sure
canon.
that champions
Okay,
feel
wow,
good
she's
to
so
play,
small.
that they're satisfying their gameplay fantasy that the player signs up for when they lock in their champion. And so even though a champion might be numerically balanced, it doesn't mean that they necessarily feel the most satisfying that they can be to play. And so we want to have a kind of heightened focus on that moving through this year,
Oh, that's
as well
good.
as kind of making sure that all champions fit a strategic purpose in the game.
So what he just said, basically, there's going to be a lot of reworks this year. They might not be heavy, hard-working reworks, but they're going to be like reworks to make a champion feel better. They already have the rework for Ahri, and I don't know if that was just a visual. I didn't really dive deep into that, but they did have the rework for Aurelion Sol. I think they're working on Skarner, and then they're also working on Yuumi. That's three reworks we got to notice at the beginning of the year. So they might be doing more. And again, it might not be anything crazy aggressive, but I do think there's some champions in the game where like you can definitely make it look better, make it feel better, whatever you need to do, because there's some outdated looking champions and some outdated kits that are like, if you could just do a little bit more, it'd be awesome. I mean, Jarvan's one of those examples. When you're playing Jarvan, all it feels like is you're doing your knockup, you're ulting, and then you're sitting in there. Like, what else can you give me so that it feels better to play a champ like that? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think there's probably some reworks coming. Don't quote me. I don't know anything. There's no leaks. But I'm just saying, based off of what he just said, if that's what their goal is, there's going to be a lot more, like, little changes to champions coming throughout the year.
Alongside that, there are a few other deficiencies with our champion balance framework that we've observed. So a champion might be quote unquote balanced, but they might be on the weak side of balanced or the strong side of balanced for an extended period of time, but it doesn't result in them being changed. And so we're kind of making sure that champions, especially when they've been in a certain state for a long time, either too weak or too strong, but not quite strong or not quite weak enough to receive a direct change, that those champions will be looked at.
See? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So we think that there are
they might do
many
that.
other small changes like this that we kind of need to investigate and see if they're going to be good to put into practice.
Great. So speaking of a good state of the game and the start of the new rank season, any recommendations for the players out there to start their rank climb?
So I think the jungle is going to be a vibrant place for champions of all types to at least go in initially.
Right.
I think the jungle pets are going to be meaningfully improving champions' jungle clears and their ability to perform in the jungle.
Right.
Some other stuff with the tank items I think is going to be super exciting, and yeah, we're super excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I do think a lot that the new jungle system is definitely helping newer players get into the jungle, or helping players that are inexperienced at jungle, or even helping players that are auto-filled in jungle. But again, jungle is not like a physical thing. Jungle is something that you can't see. It's abstract. It's in your mind, right? How you play properly is going to be a big difference. If the other jungler knows what they're doing as a jungler, you're going to lose. Just think of it like, I always use race car as an example, and I don't even know why, but think about a race car, right? If I were to race someone who's professional at being a professional race car driver, there's things that they do, they see, they react to that is more up here than it is physically, right? whereas I'm just thinking go fast. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that when it comes to jungle. So as much as they want to do physically, they can't really do much for the fact that they don't know how to jungle. So we need to figure out a way to teach them how to jungle, and we need to also figure out a way to let players know, like, either make some of these champs that aren't efficient junglers a little bit more efficient to jungle with. I don't really think Teemo should be considered that. I don't even know why they showed that. That's kind of grief, because now people are going to play jungle Teemo and it doesn't work, because again, if you're against someone who's actually good at jungle, they're probably going to beat you. But I definitely think there needs to be something else other than like, oh, it's easier to clear. Oh, we know where to go. It's a start. Don't get me wrong, but there's more to jungle that meets the eye than whereas lanes, it's more, you can see it. You can see what you're doing wrong in lane. You can't really see what you're doing wrong in the jungle. So
I'm excited to hopefully take my Singed back into the jungle.
Oh,
See how
God.
that works out.
Not like this. Not like this.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking about just our thoughts on the state of the game, and we just want to wish all the players out there best of luck on their start of the ranked season, and happy climbing.
Yeah, good luck.
What he said, happy climbing. Good luck. I like that. That was a good interview, or a good dev talk chat. That was good. I don't really have any recap to say on it because I pretty much said everything that I said within the video. Again, I'm going to upload 4 videos. This is part 1 of that. So if you guys want to hop into the next one, feel free. I do have it on the playlist, and the playlist is in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are interested in coaching, CoachBooker.com is where you want to go. I do coach. And if you guys are struggling or you guys want to be prepped for that season tomorrow, make sure you schedule that session so that way you can be ready to go and ready to get the maximum amount of gains in your LP, in your divisions, whatever you plan on hitting, the max height of your placements. So, anywho, next video is about to come out. Thank you guys for watching. Peace, late. Have a good rest of your day or night. And thank you guys for doing what? Approaching this like a coach.